Hey everyone, Leo is here, another Johnson Lightning episode, and I have Venkata, my friend, here with me to talk to me about Arc-enabled SQL Server, best practices, security, performance, and everything in between. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, Leo is here, another Johnson Lightning episode, and I have Venkata here with me. Venkata, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good, Leo. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, always a pleasure to having you. I don't know how many times you've been on the show already, but it's always great. Venkata, you're also a core maintainer in the Jumpstart team. And today we are here to talk about Arc-enabled SQL Server, best practices, security, and everything in between. Before we go and nerd out on all those good stuff, who you are, what is it that you do?
Sure, Leo. So, my name is Venkata Chintala. I'm a cloud solution architect, Azure infrastructure. I help customers leverage Azure to achieve their business results with architecture, cloud migrations, and cloud optimizations.
Hmm. Venkata, you and I, we know each other for years, and we've been in the trenches on so many customer conversations and so many Arc-related technologies that have been involved throughout the years. And your specialty is really the data portion side of things, and as part of that is also Arc-enabled SQL Server. So, what is it that we're here to talk about today, and why this topic is so important, Venkata?
Uh, Leo, today we are talking about SQL Server best practice assessment from the security point of view, compliance, and also the optimization at scale. Especially many customers these days, they run 90% of the SQL servers and Windows servers.
Hmm.
And using Arc-enabled SQL Server, they can actually accelerate their SQL Server operations with best practices assessment.
Hmm.
Today, I'm going to go through what best practices assessment is and how to enable it through Azure portal at individual server level. And also, I would like to show you how you can enable as best
Hmm.
practices at scale because many customers they have hundreds, if not thousands of SQL servers in their environment running on-prem. So, which is extremely important to understand how to take advantage of SQL Server best practices to make their operations very efficient and secure their SQL servers.
I'm loving it. Educate me, Venkata. I know that there is so much going on in this space and we're investing so much. So please educate me and our viewers. What is it that is so interesting about this type of stuff?
Surely. So I'm going to start with my presentation. Here, I just highlighted the key points here. One is the
Mhm.
use cases where you can use best practices. It is primarily for identifying opportunities for performance optimization, security compliance, and also to do the capacity estimates and disaster recovery. Okay. So how SQL Server best practices do all of this? We have around 450 plus rules that are applied when you run the SQL best practices assessment using Arc-enabled SQL Server. It improves your uptime and performance of SQL Server, and also it improves your security and compliance posture, which is extremely important in the increasing threat landscape in today's world.
So Venkata, you know, would it be fair to say then that when we started integrating or implementing best practices assessment and all the things that it brings with that, that's where we started to see this space of Arc-enabled SQL Server, booming and customers starting to adopt it just because of that large SQL footprint that they have on premises, and with this integration, it just makes a lot of sense. I think that in and also the extended security updates, ESU, we talked about it in previous shows, those were the things that really made this space booming. Would you agree with that?
100% Leo, totally. And not only that, I wanted to add some more information in terms of best practices.
Hmm.
If you remember in the past, when you're running a SQL server, you have to hire a Microsoft consultant to bring on-prem and to the data center, run these assessment. To run these assessments on each server, it takes some time, at least a week, if not months, depending on how many servers you have. Using this Arc-enabled SQL Server best practice assessment, you can do
Hmm.
on demand at scale. And within an hour, or if not a couple of hours, you have all the results presented to you in the form of a dashboard. It reduces a lot of database administrators' time to do on all these servers. And
Hmm.
moreover, it is a free of cost because you're already paying for SQL Server as part of your software assurance license. And if you don't have a software assurance license, you can still leverage using a pay-as-you-go license.
Yeah. So, Venkata, let's talk about how it works. I also know that you have like a very nice architecture diagram to talk to me about, and also a very interesting demo. So, talk to me. How does that work?
Sure, Leo. Let me show you the architecture diagram. So before we talk about the architecture, I just wanted to highlight a few things. Number one,
Hmm.
assume that you already have onboarded your underlying machine to Azure Arc as a connected machine. So once
Hmm.
you connect your machine to Azure Arc, the Azure Arc agent detects there is a operating SQL Server installed. So there are a couple of ways you can actually connect to your SQL Server,
Hmm.
either using Azure portal, create an extension on the portal, or you can use Azure CLI to enable the extension, or you can
Hmm.
use Azure policy at scale that will automatically apply on all the servers which are already connected to the Azure Arc. So
Right.
the architecture diagram am showing here is if you look at here on the bottom, the connected machine agent that is representing in the Azure portal. On top of that, you have an Arc SQL extension. And also the most important thing you need to understand here is the Azure monitor agent. That's a key that actually uh, relays your assessment results to the log analytics workspace on the right. So you still have to have a log analytics workspace to host all that assessment results. So the way it works is once you configure assessment through Azure portal or through policy at scale, your SQL server running, extension running on the machine is going to start executing those 450 plus rules based on your schedule. And it is going to use the Azure monitoring agent to send those logs to the log analyst workspace through your enterprise proxy or firewalls, which are either you can go through a public internet, or if you want to do it private, you can create a private endpoints through this log analyst workspace, and all the data will be residing in Azure in your workspace. Once you have the data in this workspace, we have the user interface. I'm going to show you in a moment. And the BPA report interface is going to render those results in terms of the priorities, the rules that are assessed against your database server and all the list of databases. And also, it's going to give you the categories of the assessment results.
Yeah. I think that it's such an important thing for us to explain the robust architecture that we're talking about, and especially in the context of how do we also send the data, because like this is a big concern to a lot of users when it comes to Arc enabled SQL Server and Arc enabled servers in general, right? Like people wants to understand how the data in transit process looks like and how the architecture is working. So I appreciate you explaining this. Venkat, I always love to see your demos, so show me the magic.
Definitely, Leo. So in order to begin with the SQL Server assessment, you need to understand what is required to configure best practice assessment and run it on your Arc-enabled SQL servers. So
Mhm.
this is our documentation, which has a very detailed. You can go through the prerequisites. I'm not going to go through everything, but there are key points which are already highlighted in our architecture diagram. One is a connected machine, which is already connected to the Azure Arc, plus SQL Server extension, which is already installed, and a log analytics workspace. Plus, you need to have certain permissions that are fully documented here, and the link will be included in the video at the end. But go through all the list of prerequisites in order to configure the best practices assessments. So once you have the prerequisites available, all you have to do is go to the Azure portal. In the Azure portal, you can go to the Azure Arc Blade, which is already open right now. And see here on the Azure portal, there's the Azure Arc, which is the home page for the entire Azure Arc landscape. Here you can scroll down and see the list of SQL servers that are highlighted right here, and click on these SQL Server instances, for example. That will actually show you the servers, especially the SQL Server instances that are connected to the Azure Arc. So these are the some of the Arc instances which I already have connected for this demo. And see the status, the name, the location, mode, versions, and everything. And you also have a ESU. But now, in order to do the SQL assessment enablement, you just need to click on one of the SQL Server instances. I have a couple of them for demo, one which is already connected and enabled, and the second one I have right now, and which is right here. So once you go to the SQL Server instance page, you can see there is a settings menu on the left, and then the best practice assessment right here. Just click on this link, and that will go take you to this page. So as I mentioned before in the architecture, the first thing you need is a log analytics workspace, which I already have in my existing environment. I'm going to use my log analytics workspace to configure it. Right now, you can see the assessment status disabled. Now I'm actually enabling it. There's nothing here. That's exactly you have to do it here, and just click on the enable assessment. That's it. It's very simple. It's not complex. Log analytics workspace and click on the button. So it's going to take some time because behind the scenes, it is actually using Azure Arm deployment to enable the assessment. It may take some time, but once it is available, it will show, it is going to enable the configuration button, and which is where you can actually configure schedules. And once you have the configuration available, you can actually run the assessments. I have an existing SQL servers which are already enabled. Okay. So here you can see the configuration button. You can see all the list of options. You can schedule monthly, you can weekly, or you can also specify your time zone to run the assessment. And you just need to click on the assessment. So once you click on the run assessment, it is going to run these assessments. If you see the list, I have run these multiple times. Each time I run these assessments, I made some changes to the SQL Server to see the differences between the first assessment, the next, and the subsequent assessment. The reason why we do that is the whole idea of the best practice assessment is to get you the recommendations and apply those recommendations on your SQL Server databases or servers to improve your security posture, your performance, and also and other optimizations. So what I wanted to do is, so this is the list of, also I wanted to show you one quick thing. You can do this at scale, and you can do that at a subscription level and also at the individual resource group level. What you see here is my resource group, which is where I have my servers connected. And these are the existing policy assignments. If I want to enable SQL Server assessment at scale, I just need to click on assign policy, and you pick your subscription and also the policy definition. This is the key. We have an Azure policy that is available for customers to select and assign at scale. You just need to click on this ellipsis, and it's going to show you the list of available policies and search for that policy. So this is a policy that is currently available. Configure Arc enabled servers with SQL Server extension, and you can see right here, checkbox, and then click add. Once you add, it is going to start asking a couple of questions. So click on the next. You have to see the parameters because assessment requires a log analytics workspace. You pick a log analytics workspace from this from your subscription. By the way, the subscription, the log analytics workspace and your resources must be in the same subscription, even though they are in different resource groups. Just wanted to let you know. So just click the log analytics and workspace location. You can, this is my East US2, your Azure region. Pick that one. And then enablement, you can see the information icon. You can say true. Sorry for the typos. And then click next. So when you apply policies, you need to remediate. So you have to create a remediation task for any existing ones All new ones, the policy will take effect automatically. With the existing ones, you need to create a remediation task. Leave everything as default. If you want to change, you can change to a user assigned manager entity to access the workspace, and then simply click next, and then put a non-compliance message saying that enable BPA and review and create. So this will assign your policy at the resource group level in this case. So wait for the policy to assign. For some reason, I have some issues here, but we just need to make sure you have the right parameters assigned. These are case sensitive. Review and create, and then reassign. So that will assign the policy, and it will do the best practice assessment at scale for all the instances which are currently created. So that's how you enable the assessment. Next, I'm going to show you how to run the assessment. Now you have the SQL Server assessment. Let's go back to the one which I already enabled. Now you see the policy, the best practices assessments are deployed. Now it is ready to configure. You can configure your schedules right here, and also you can run the assessment. Simply run the assessment. It's going to start the assessment. It takes an hour depending on how many databases you have and also how big those databases are. This it takes time. But let's jump into the existing assessment which I have. Let's start with the first assessment which is already created. I have another window open for these results. This is the dashboard report for best practices assessments. If we see the screen here, you see there are 406 rules that are passed, and there are 12 medium rules, and there are medium priority or severity that needs attention. There are 11 rules that are low, and one in 6 info and one high. When you do the assessment, it will be overwhelming based on how many recommendations you have. Typically, what the way you should approach is always start with the high severity recommendations or high priority critical recommendations. That way, you focus on the most important one first, and then read on the assessment, see the difference between those two. So now question is, what are the recommendations and how they do look like? So if you scroll down in this assessment report, see these are the high recommendations, database configuration and the performance. And if you click on one of these, it is going to show you the rule that is actually enabling. And this is the message that is showing. If you click on that message, it will show you the complete documentation and the description of what it is. And there is a help link. You can actually click on this help link to actually enable properly on your database. Okay. So you have fully documented information right here to apply all the recommendations based on the importance of the recommendations. So each organizations work differently. Not every recommendation may apply to all, but you pick what is important for your organization and then apply those uh, to secure your SQL estate and also optimize your performance. And
Yeah.
another thing you can see the category. There are different categories, so you don't need to go too much about it. There's application related, system related, and general and administrative. Most of them are administrative related to the SQL Server. So now you saw one assessment report right here. This is the first assessment. In the first assessment, you don't see any resolved issues. Every recommendation you see are all new. Okay. When you go to the second assessment, you see the difference between the previous assessment and the second assessment because I made some changes to the database and there are certain issues which are resolved just for the demo purpose. And this is the issue, it is resolved right now and it will show you as resolved. And if it detects any other new issue, and they will be displayed right here. It doesn't mean this is the only issue, this is just a new one compared to the previous assessment. Okay. So, where do I find all these rules? We have GitHub documentation about all these 450 plus rules. You can go here. This is the link, and every rule is there and what it does in terms of the assessment and why it is important. So go through the list, and also you can ask me one more question. I can do it one server using this dashboard, but how do I do it at scale for many servers? To answer to that question is log analytics workspace. All these rules and results are actually in the log analytics workspace, and then you can query using log analytics queries. And we have a blog published. This is the blog. We have a sample queries. You can take these KQL queries and run against your uh, log analytics workspace to get across multiple servers.
Yeah. Definitely, Venkata. Thank you for this comprehensive demo, and also obviously we're gonna link all the links in the description down below. Obviously to get started with this, we always tell people go try RBox specifically for IT pros. And can definitely play with all of this stuff. Venkata, thank you so much for for such a comprehensive demo. This is an important space. I always said that in the context of Arc enabled and specifically with Arc enabled SQL Server and the policy integration and the best practices assessment, it's such a powerful combination for our customers and our users. Venkata, again, thank you so much for joining me, and for the Jumpstart Lightning viewers, thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna see you in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye, everyone.